What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a really fun event that we decided to put together as we move into tax season, where we are getting ready to have a tech roundtable discussion with two of the industry leaders in technology for accountants. And so to kick things off here, I'd like to just start off by welcoming both David and Andrew. David, to kick things off, just give us a little bit of background on who you are, what your role is, a little bit about your company, and then we'll swing it to Andrew for the same.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, happy morning, afternoon, evening, depending where you're at in the world. Thanks, Tyler, for having us on. So I'm David Cristello. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Jetpack Workflow. So the primary thing we do is we have a software product of the same name, and we help accounting, bookkeeping, payroll, and tax firms document all the processes in their firm, automate all the recurring deadlines, and make sure that themselves and their team are on the same page so nothing falls through the cracks. Also, because it's a lot of fun, we wrote a book called Double Your Accounting Firm that was based off of a podcast we've been doing. Tyler's been on the podcast. Andrew should probably be on the podcast, where we interview top firm owners, practitioners, thought leaders, vendors in the space about what's keeping them competitive in the modern world. And that's a little bit about us.
All right. And I'll pick it up from there. Tyler, thank you so much for having me. My name is Andrew Lassise. I'm with Tech for Accountants. And as you could probably guess from the name of the company, we specialize in tech for accountants. And essentially what we do that kind of differentiates ourselves, as much as I hate to say it, you could think of us kind of like a geek squad on steroids that's specifically targeted to the accounting industry. And if we dig in deeper, like especially tax accountants, people that answer to the IRS, and all of the work that we do is based off of IRS publications. So a lot of times with IT people, it's he said, she said, oh, this is the best way because of this, and I recommend this because of that. And so our process is basically on everything is we do it this way because that's what the IRS says that everyone should be doing. So we kind of take that gray area out of IT, and it's because so much of it is, it's over a lot of people's heads. If you didn't go to school for this stuff, if you're not, it gets new to us every month anyway. So if you're not keeping up with it, there's no way that you even know. So basically what we do is we cut through all of that gray area of the IT, and here is what you need, not based on my opinion, but based on IRS publication 1075, 4557, what have you. So that's like a high level what we do. I also host the Tech Talk for Accountants show, where I had Tyler on twice, actually, double the fun, because I pretty much died on our first recording. And David, same, I'll have you on at another time as well. But I hope that answers the question in some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, I appreciate you both carving some time out of your day. So let's go ahead and jump into sharing some of your insights as it relates to technology. And of course, for those unfamiliar, my name is Tyler S. Clark, co-founder of Dream Firms. We're all about creating generational wealth and impact for entrepreneurial accountants by systemizing how they attract, win, and retain the business of their dream clients. We recently launched new software, dreamleads.app, and it is really meant to be the ultimate solution for attracting your dream clients to you, from websites, funnels, email marketing, text messaging, appointment setting, the works. So point is, let's talk about why accountants should be so excited about the future of technology. And I'm going to go ahead and send this one over to David here. I know that Jetpack works on a lot of new developments, new features, looking to stay ahead of the curve. So what is it, broadly speaking, about technology that you're excited about? And specifically related to your tool, what's something that maybe you can share with us that we should be excited about that might be right around the bend?
Yeah, awesome. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is probably not all that surprising in January of 2022, but I think where technology is coming to a head is how it interfaces with how the DNA of a team is changing. And so what I functionally mean by that is, and we're seeing it a little bit today, I think it's going to, of course, accelerate, but kind of coming out, or I think we're coming out of the pandemic. Is anybody ever sure we feel like we're coming out? I think we're about there, we're close. But what I mean by the DNA changing of the team is it used to be fairly normal that everybody's mindset was on a full-time employee. And Jetpack Workflow, we have 15 full-time employees. So we're still in that boat, but there is a number of supplemental or augmented staffing that we see accelerating across our firms. And then the real challenge for technology is how do you handle that? Of course, Andrew might think of it from a security perspective, because there's a lot of security implications as you accelerate the world of freelancers and interns and contractors and onshore agencies and offshore agencies. I think, many firms that we've interviewed, they see the opportunity to scale their firm, but you always kind of run in this feast or famine behavior, whether you're launching new services or you have seasonal services. And so how do you bring in team members both securely, but then also how do you manage so many different stakeholders in a client file while keeping the client having a consistent experience? It's really, really challenging. And so how can technology assist in that evolution of a team and what it looks like without making it ultra confusing for the client experience? The client doesn't want to talk to 7 people, even if there's 7 touches on a file. They want one person. And so how this, programmatically is infused in Jetpack Workflow, and I won't dig too much into the details here. I wasn't planning on talking about all that much, Tyler, but we are embarking on a giant, call it new build of the platform, where we're really thinking about how the client is the center of not only the work file, but the billing access, because we've been so, I feel like, restricted on a per user model. And I know it's getting a little bit in the weeds, but if folks are kind of interested in kind of the evolution of team management, how do you pipe in contractors or freelancers and things like that, I'd be happy to talk with them as we're kind of building out the next generation of Jetpack.
Well, that's super exciting, and appreciate you keying us in a little bit on some insider developments there, David. And I think your point's very astute from the standpoint that the way in which we are communicating is evolving. And when things evolve, sometimes they can get a little bit complex. Your reference of 7 touch points to be able to handle a client folder is not the same thing as having the client know that there's 1 touch point and 7 people who are responsible for getting it over the finish line. I love the differentiation there. And I think that as technology continues to evolve here, we have to make sure that the client experience is always what we're staying focused on for how technology is allowing us to create the ultimate client experience. And I find that, and I'm going to swing this to Andrew here, this is where things can sometimes get a little messy on security, right? Because the more security there is, I find that that's typically where there's a little bit of friction, right? It's harder to do, right? I think the old platitude of, the more secure you are, the less free you are. Well, that means that if there's more security, there's more constriction, might be a little bit harder to accomplish things. What do you have to say to that, Andrew? Do you find that that's true? Do you think there's a happy middle ground? Is technology getting to the point where security is actually more accessible to more people?
Yeah, it's a great question and a great topic. If you look back even a couple years ago, so our company started at 2014. And if you look at what the security in a office environment looked like there versus what it's looking like now, back then it was very, very, very it was very IT versus the client. And what I mean by that is whenever there was something that went wrong, it was, I'm mad at IT. And whenever IT was doing what in our mind was a good job, they're like, oh, it's too complicated to get in. There's so many different things and questions I have to answer. I have to change my password every single day. I want it to be secure. And it's not that, the client didn't want their firm to be secure, didn't want to be securing their client data. Everyone would, if we could just check the box, would I like to be more secure? Yes. But with every positive, there's that equal and opposite negative. And historically, it has been the more secure you are, the more of a pain it is in order to do your job. And, finding that happy middle ground of security and still being able to be productive. It's really secure if your computer shuts off automatically after you haven't used it for 1 minute. Like, that is pretty secure, but it's so inconvenient that it's not practical. So what we're seeing more and more of, and Chase Banking, if anyone uses it, they actually do a really good job at this, where if I try to log in to my Chase account on my home computer, username, password, hey, nice to see you again. But if I try to do it at my next door neighbor's house, they have a whole lot of extra security because they realize, hey, this doesn't look right. Can you confirm and verify for me that I should be letting you in here? So adding those extra layers of security when it actually makes sense to be there, but then, skewing it back a bit for the sake of productivity. And we're seeing a lot of that now with, the kind of adoption of AI and sort of narrowing in here is what normal behavior looks like. Here is what abnormal behavior looks like. So let's secure very, very strong on something that looks abnormal. And yeah, it's a pain that I log in on my neighbor's computer and have to do extra steps, but it's a good thing, because that means if someone else were trying to do it that shouldn't have access, now they can't because of the additional steps. And we're seeing more and more of that.
That's such a great answer, Andrew. And it's right on point in the sense that technology is evolving in a way in which it's making our lives easier in some ways that we don't even necessarily recognize at times, right? Like I remember the pains that came along with cybersecurity just a few years ago. And now it does feel fundamentally different when I'm in my normal routine and environment. There's way less of those things that crop up and kind of annoy you. But now when it feels like, oh, I'm grateful that this actually happened in this situation. Fantastic. So let's change gears here a little bit. I want to talk maybe about our own personal workflows and some of the things that we do. And I know, hey, we're not specifically accountants, but I find that some of the technology that we find ourselves using on a regular day in and day out basis is multi-purpose. It's meant to be used by multiple industries. So if you could name up to three, you can choose to just pick one, but three tools that aren't necessarily accounting specific, but you find to be absolutely indispensable in being able to run your companies. What would you consider? And we'll start with Andrew here. Three tools. What would you say those three would be?
So off the top of my head, the number one tool would be Trello. And I have my own way of using it, but essentially Trello is my glorified to-do list. And I will be, I'll be out running or something and come up with an idea for my business, which unfortunately happens way more often than I'd like to admit, that I'm thinking about work while I'm exercising, but it does. And, I get an idea. Hey, we should try to implement this or try to automate that. And I just pop it into my Trello. And then, so that's step one, is where I capture. So I capture all my ideas in Trello. Step two, I actually, the tool that I use a lot, it's it actually goes back thousands and thousands of years. It's a digital, man, I can't get it with the green screen.
Some form of tree
it's
bark, I think.
Yeah. It's an analog tool, in this digital age, called pen and paper, and writing it in my calendar. And there's been a whole lot of studies and things that just say, the act of writing it down versus typing accesses some sort of creativity. I'm no scientist, but I know that it works. And so I do that to plan out my day. And then I also I love Calendly combined with Outlook to be able to schedule in appointments and things that are important, have that happen around when I am available. And essentially what this workflow does for me is, when I have time blocked out to be working on my company and not in my company, which, I mean, that's one of the biggest struggles there is. I could spend an hour working on a giant campaign that's going to bring in several hundred more clients or thousands of leads, or, things that are going to grow the business, or benefits I can be bringing to my employees, like high level things. And I could also be going through the client roster and making uniform the phone numbers. Sometimes people put in hyphens, sometimes they don't. Some people put a 1 in the front for a US number, sometimes they don't. And I could spend hours going through and doing that, but there's not an ROI on it. It's just, hey, won't this look nice in a spreadsheet? So when I sit down, think about it, and I don't have to think about what are my big ideas for today. It's all been captured in Trello. And then I can, triage as I see fit for what is important. And then all the daily minutia stuff, this client called in and had a question about that I could answer anytime in the next month. It doesn't become red alert because it's the top of my list because my time has been blocked out.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly stated. We're all owners in some capacity here. And if we're not dedicating the time for high priority items, well, don't be surprised that we don't make any progress on them. And nothing better than pen and paper. David, up to three tools that, again, not accounting specific, but you feel are tremendous assets to running your business. What would you consider those to be?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to mention any accounting specific ones because I don't want to spark a battlefield between Xero and QuickBooks, which anecdotally, I feel like 3 years ago there was a battle. I don't know. It feels a little bit more QuickBooks heavy these days. I don't know. It might be a controversial take, but we're indifferent to what platform you use. So I'm going to say, I imagine there are a couple boring ones, but I'm also going to add how I use them and why they came to mind. So first one, not surprisingly, is just the G Suite set of tools. And so how I use those, I guess, maybe a little bit differently. So we made a big shift as a company, like many, early 2020. We used to have an office, 2 miles from my house, and the whole team would go there. Everybody but one person in Brazil, everybody but one person would go there and we'd work from that office. Since then, we've gone remote. And so then the question is, how do you kind of navigate this world of communication in a remote environment? So we use chat tools and they're fun, they're great. But some of the things I've really relied on is just kind of writing memos to the company. And so Google Docs is my best friend for this. So I'll write a monthly memo on how we're performing as a company, some high level thoughts. I'll bring my managers in and they'll add a blurb and send it out to everybody. If there's a really tough issue we're thinking about, I will usually write up a memo, send it in advance, and then have a conversation at the time of the meeting versus having to get everybody up to speed on the context. And I certainly didn't invent this idea. It's been, adopted at a company called Amazon for some time and well documented there, and other folks use it. And then the other thing I rely on G Suite for a lot is I just Google Sheets, but the way I use it, there's one very impactful one is at the first day of every month, we will write the monthly memo out to the company. I'll recap the data, but then I'll open up a Google Sheet file and I'll map out my following month. And so I'll look at what are the most important things in the month. So I will use a process that is, what are the, kind of rocks, pebbles, and sand under the premise. It's an old Coveyism where you want to start with the rocks and go after the pebbles, then get to the sand so you can get it all done. I will add my personal goals for the year, includes my family and finances and relationships next to my work. And then I'll start to drop those in on given weeks. Some of those are habits, some of those are big projects. Because then what I do is, every Sunday or literally any work day, I can open it up and say, okay, this is what I want to get done this month. This is the sequence I wanted to get it done in. And that's on top of whatever's normal recurring activities I may need to get done, but it helps me stay on track and helps me sanity check things. My son's daycare was closed for the last 8 days, right? And so my schedule was thrown in a blender, but I could go back to that sheet and say, am I at least accomplishing some of these high level actions to move it forward? So that was very useful. The second one is called Loom, Loom. So when a memo doesn't work, I will create a video and just talk through, or I'll create a screen share and talk through. And more the vendors I work with and the partners I work with in advance of our meetings will send me a Loom. So, I'm sure this will speak maybe a little bit to your world, Tyler, but, we run online ads and we do a monthly recap with that vendor, and he sends me a Loom video in advance of what's going on, where the challenges, what he needs from us, what's stuck. And then that makes our meeting just really quick, very fast. And so use at your own leisure with clients. But I think it's great for the team, to just, save a meeting, save a long conversation to have that video. Last but not least, I'll throw out a curveball, and it's not a part of my daily workflow, but I know our team uses it and loves it. is canva.com. So thumbnails for videos, Facebook images, LinkedIn images. If you need to be a designer without hiring a designer, their kind of drag and drop editor is something that we've ended up relying on time and time again over the last 5 years. So canva.com would kind of be my third one, even though it's not in my kind of daily workflow.
These are all fantastic. And honestly, you guys stole the ones that I was thinking that I was going to say. But so I'm going to actually go a little bit deeper into the wormhole, into some things that I'll consider more advanced at large that aren't commonly known. Like Canva, love it. Amazing tool. Calendly, amazing tool. But I discovered one recently from a team management perspective, because Zoom is increasingly important, right? We're using Zoom to communicate. It's basically replaced the telephone for a lot of firms. And so this tool is known as gong.io, like smashthegong.io. And it is a speech recognition and analysis tool that is exceptionally powerful for team management. What gets measured gets managed, but it's hard to measure communication with clients and how well that's being done. I have found Gong to be an unbelievable resource for making something that felt like you had no visibility on it. Now you have visibility when your team is communicating with your clients. You can see it, you can course correct. Can't recommend it enough. Well worth the investment. Second tool that I'll recommend that I will also say is maybe a little bit more specific for us, but I think it's something that we can all start to look at, which is I realized that a long time ago, I don't like Facebook, and shout out to our Facebook group. I love our Facebook group and I love the people on there, but I don't find it to be a very productive place to house an audience or community, because Facebook is literally built to distract you. And we want to make sure that you guys stay focused. So what we did is we went on a long search to find a way to host community material, everything under one umbrella. And it landed us on a platform known as Mighty Networks. So Mighty Networks is a private social media community, essentially. It is a Facebook Lite, super, super cool platform that we host the Dream Firms Network on. So a little bit behind the scenes look for you guys there. And I will go ahead and say that my third and final one, I will just reference the Google suite of products as David did, because it is so powerful. It allows for communication to occur in such an amazing way. Like we do a lot of copywriting, we do a lot of writing for our clients, we do a lot of email broadcast messaging, and to be able to get all of us on the same page on a shared document and be able to comment and use the editing feature, which I just discovered in the last couple of weeks here. Like it is so powerful to be able to see what it used to be to what it is now. I can't rave enough about how you should consider migrating from Outlook and Microsoft to Google. It is just super powerful. And to not be lame and have just the third one that's already been used. If you don't have Grammarly installed on Google Chrome, I can't tell you the amount of egg it's kept off my face. I mean, I could make a mean a mean egg roll. Then there's not really a lot of egg in egg rolls, but I can make so much whatever I need egg for because of how much Grammarly has saved me from just looking like a fool when it comes to grammar. So free extension, you can download it, but excellent. So look, those are some great tips and tricks.
Tyler,
go ahead.
I'll just interject a little bit. Just to emphasize Grammarly. So the amazing thing about Grammarly is that it's not, it's browser specific. So as Tyler said, you can install it as an add-on to your Chrome. I'm sure maybe it's in other browser extensions as well if you use other ones. But what it does is anytime you write text anywhere or using an app within that browser, it is going to scan the text and pull out not only misspellings, but it will actually highlight ways to better phrase something, to either simplify it, to better articulate it. So that's the real power of Grammarly. So if you're writing an email, it will show up in your email composition window. If you're in a project management tool and you're writing a note in that project management tool, it will show up there. It will show up in nearly any application. I'm sure some is not compatible, but that's the real power of it. Is it will suggest better ways to word something, not just typos, and it just lives across any app you open in the Chrome browser.
Yeah, and just one other point on Grammarly. I put so much stock into the little emoji in the bottom right when it's like, here's how your message looks and feels, and gives me the little like straight mouth. I'm like, I thought this was a pretty upbeat message. I was like, I guess I got to change it. But no, there are some great little feedback tools, and it kind of runs in different places. But go ahead, Dave. You had something to add there, I think.
I will add one if folks are intrigued by natural language processing, and I don't really like to use the phrase artificial intelligence, but we'll just call it artificial intelligence. There's been a whole suite of tools that will help you write posts. Not as well, I think, as a full-fledged professional copywriter, but if you want to get a sense of what's been going on in the world of machine learning and natural language processing, the one that comes to, there's two, copy.ai. So we went in and we experimented and we said, Jetpack workflow does this, this, and this. Write 3 alternative pitches for our product. And it would generate 5 or 6 or 8 different pitches for the product. The other one is Jarvis. I think it's jarvis.ai, like Iron Man, or maybe it's jarvis.com. And you could go in, they all have trials, but they're built on this technology called GPT-3, which is really the kind of next evolution of AI or machine learning. And it is really fun, just to start to experiment, play around with, even if you just input some data in there and see what is generated on your behalf for your Facebook post or whatever they could put on there. It's really fun, just kind of explore that space if you have an extra kind of 30 minutes to kind of enter this world, which I'm not sure most of us do in January, but maybe bookmark it for May.
Excellent. Well, those are some great feedbacks or great tools to consider. I think there's another one out there that has a lot of different, like it takes all the best email copy that's already been used. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I know it's in the Dream Firms network. I'll grab it and drop it in here during a question in a second here. But let's change topics here and change gears, and we'll start with David on this one. Technology is exciting, but I think it can also be frightening. And I think sometimes these fears can be warranted. And so when you're looking at how technology is impacting the accounting industry, what's a trend that you see developing, David, that people should be aware of? Again, not fearful of, but it's good to have an eye towards these things as they develop so we can course correct appropriately. What's maybe a trend that you've noticed developing in the accounting industry?
Yeah, I'll quickly talk about one that's here, and I'll talk about one that I feel like is upcoming. It's a little bit more in the weeds, a little bit more technical. So I could probably speak less to the second one from an accounting perspective. But I mean, the first one is no surprise that, certain level of redundant tasks will find ways to be automated. Kind of V1, V2 was how do we contract this out? How do we offshore it out? How do we get the lowest kind of labor cost for this certain task? And then V2 version 2 is, how does it get automated? Now, we've seen time and time again, people say, this is automated, this is the end. A, it's never the end. And B, it's really actually automated, right? They say it's automated, and then there's a shop somewhere in the world of people doing this. I won't call anybody out, but we've all seen the headlines.
I'll call them out.
But the point is that, the premise behind technology, the reason why it's, whether it's a wheel or an app in your computer, is that it should increase productivity. It should drive productivity gains. And so you should be able to do more with less. And so whatever automation means to you, that's not going away. And whether, again, that's been kind of outsourced or it's going to be automated in the future. And again, not everything, but, we just talked about advances in machine learning where they're kind of generating text for you that looks like a human being wrote it. You can imagine a world in which email responses to clients will be 98% done. You imagine that, even maybe early conversations live could be, call it recorded or done, or AI manipulated, or you've duplicated yourself and be done. And so there's ways for you to kind of extrapolate yourselves from the day-to-day tasks. And so part of that's very scary, right? Because then you're losing kind of control over the output of your firm. Every time you kind of delegate or automate something out, you're losing control. And so then the flip side is, how does technology give you visibility over what is actually going on? And then I love Tyler's recommendation on tools like Gong. How do you drive quality control over it? And so if you have other people, like right now, it's other people answering, clients on your behalf. And you want to make sure they're doing a good job. You want to make sure that the client feels like their needs are met, that their things are getting done on time. in the future, that might be, and we see this in a lot of sales and marketing arenas, that might be a bot. Hey, this is the ABC firm bot. They might call themselves a bot. They might call themselves Jenna, the human, right? But it's actually AI. But how do you maintain quality control over it? And I think, at the end of the day, you need quality control. You need visibility. Technology is not going to take away the client relationship, the advisor relationship. I don't believe that there's a small business owner that is going to wake up tomorrow and because of technology find the world of accounting, bookkeeping, tax, and payroll so exciting that they're going to do everything on their own and they don't need any help. Like human beings, the good news is that human beings will remain human beings and they're not going to want to do these things and they're going to need advisors to do this. And I think, if treated with the appropriate precautions, you should be able to create a much more scalable firm. And I think we're going to see a lot more, and we see this in the creator space for content, 1 or 2 person, $1 million plus accounting firms. And you probably already see it in the space. So anyways, that's big one, number one. The second one, I would say, just keep a fun eye on, and I literally mean fun eye on, unless you're actually advising clients in this, is the world of kind of smart contracts on the blockchain. And so, the ability to instantly transact a piece of intellectual property is really interesting to kind of follow. There was a great, if you want a quick, I'd say 2-hour overview of the space. Tim Ferriss, Naval Ravikant, Chris Dixon did a great podcast interview, I think last year. But the point being, and the implications for finances is, I'll give you a great example. If I was an artist and I was painting a picture and I sold this picture to a famous art collector, well, the market proof would say, hey, art collector just bought it. It must be worth something. So it's going to appreciate quickly in value. They'll sell it to the next art collector. The way contracting is going on kind of the blockchain technology, whether it ends up being Ethereum or some other, platform, is that the original artist, every time it gets resold of their digital product, they'll get a kickback of royalty all the way through. So if you're a digital artist and you sell it to an art collector and that appreciates in value and they go resell it, the original artist is going to get royalties in perpetuity and they can actually pass that down to their family, to their legacy. And so what are the implications when it comes to accounting, payroll, bookkeeping, and tax? And how do you manage that? And how do you keep that as an asset for you personally? Is a whole can of worms I don't think anybody's really prepared to figure out. And there's some people that are learning about it, but this space is evolving quickly. I don't recommend, unless you want to deep dive as this is your defined niche for your firm, for any to spend an egregious amount of time here. But there is something fundamentally interesting here. And I think when artists and creators and writers start using it because they can get these perpetual royalties, then you're going to see the outpouring of other industries start to use it. And even just this week, and full disclosure, I haven't looked into it. I have no idea what it is. Walmart is talking about essentially blockchain technology. Round 2, they've been using it for a while for some of their logistics, but now they're talking about things in the metaverse, which typically implies digital currencies that sit inside of, whether they have their own token or a new cryptocurrency. So anyways, all that to say is I would say casually monitor this space. It is going to happen. Something interesting is going to happen here, but don't, and go down the rabbit hole if you want, but it's just maybe we're 5 or 10 years out, but there's something interesting there.
That's a great point about the future of what this space can look like. And I know that might sound really intense for people who might have had a 20 or 30 year career. Now we're talking about NFTs and blockchains and tokens and metaverse and all these things. But keep in mind that change happens a lot slower than a lot of people think. And this isn't going to happen overnight, but for those that are willing to change gradually, to David's point, like keeping an ear towards it, being able to even just repurpose the conversation that you just heard will allow you to be seen as this expert, to be seen as someone who's capable of guiding them, because this is going to be an increasingly talked about topic. And so I think it is incumbent upon all of us to be curious, right? Like, let's not be envious. I'm a big fan of, like, when we feel envious, why, it shouldn't be this way, or people are making all this money or whatever. It's like, be curious about how or why that's happening, because it will benefit you. When there's massive disruption like this, there's also massive opportunity for those who are just willing to course correct and listen to the winds a little bit. But great points, Dave. Go ahead. Something to add real quick before we swing.
Yeah, sorry, just one thing to add on to here, because there's both a lot and a little. I talk to people a lot and they're like, what's new? And it's always like a lot's new and nothing's new, right? But I would say, as the implication for your firm, when it comes to emergent platforms to advertise on, or smart contract technology, or natural language processing as it relates to content, I would follow your curiosity. Like if you are actually interested in this world of kind of blockchain technology, then follow that. If you don't learn anything about it this year, that's okay too. Like nothing bad will happen, right? I mean, but I would say follow what interests you. And what Tyler said is it's slower than you think. So in many cases, when you start hearing about this nonstop, right? I remember 2014, 2015, people could not stop talking about Facebook ads. Like Facebook ads were phenomenal, and they're still good today. But I mean, early on, you're like, I can't talk to any other fellow business owner that's not doing well on Facebook ads. And we were late to the game, but we're still very early. And I think it's very much the same for all of these trends. So if one interests you, I'd say kind of pick one to be maybe the bleeding edge, early edge adopter, to just kind of listen to a podcast, watch a YouTube video, casually follow. And then for other trends, when they're literally hitting you over the head, maybe say, okay, maybe it's time I take a look at cloud apps or Facebook ads or LinkedIn or whatever it may be.
Perfectly said. Follow your curiosity. Andrew, let's change gears just slightly here, because I still want to talk about the future of technology and I think cybersecurity and how that's going to play a role in it, and IT. But I also want to talk about this a little bit from a business perspective, because I find that it's very interesting to me that accountants are trusted with such sensitive information, and sometimes their security is secondary, which means that their clients' security can often be considered secondary. Do you see a world in not so distant future in which accountants in the trusted advisory role are also now feeling more responsibility for protecting not only their data, but their clients' data as well? Do you see how those two technologies and responsibilities come closer and closer as time progresses?
Yeah. So being in the trenches on seeing this day in and day out, I've kind of come to the conclusion that people are on either one side of the fence or the other. We will see people that have up and down security, just every single thing you could imagine. And when we're talking to them, I mean, basically like our audit is, here are 200 pages of IRS regulations. You need to have this, check this box, don't check this box, have this policy, da da da. And sometimes we will go through it with clients, and they will have. We've had a handful that have just passed everything, and they were going off the same thing that we were going off of, and so that's why they passed it. But it's very rare that we're seeing people that are in the middle on the topic, where they have some pretty good things in place, but not everything. We're usually seeing people on the extreme. I want the best of everything. I need everything encrypted. I need everything to be as safe and secure as possible because I want to protect my clients. I don't want to risk losing my license. I don't want to have a data breach and then have to disclose it to all my clients that I didn't do a good job at protecting them. I don't want to have to pay for data monitoring for all of my client database. I don't want to have to deal with New York because I have some clients in there, and Massachusetts and some of the other really firm data privacy states. So we'll see people on that side that are just, gold star, and they end up doing business with us just to fill the holes of that, like 1-2%. And then we see people on the other side, and the same role of the trusted advisor in someone's business, where they and I mean, it's a generalized, but people that have been practicing for a very long time, and they kind of adopt the mindset, and they're not incorrect in this sentiment to a degree, but they will believe the myth that I'm small, so nothing will happen to me. And, these are the less than 5 firms, and we have a ton of clients that are less than 5. And, so it's never happened to me before. Therefore, since I have Norton on my computer, I have just, the absolute best security in the world, and nobody could possibly hack my computer because I bought a $60 piece of software at Best Buy off the shelf. And, so when people haven't experienced that pain point, and I mean, in our industry, unfortunately, I see the horror stories every single day. I ran a query in our database of tickets the other day, and it was just how many times was the word scammed past tense used, and it was some crazy. It was like 100,000 tickets that we have answered the phone, and the description or the email was, "I have been scammed." Past tense, it has already happened. And so we see it every single day. So when people tell us it's not going to happen to me, I'm too small, I have Norton, I've got all the protection I need. I had one guy argue with one of my agents. He said he has a military grade shredder, and that's why he doesn't need cybersecurity, which that response told me he definitely does need it. But, if you just think about it, just in that trusted advisor role, and, a lot of people, they do their own taxes. And I mean, a fair question is, would you want your accountant being this lackluster with your own data? Because that is who you currently have. The person that is doing your returns, yourself, does not care about losing your information or having even just basic levels of security. Stuff like have a password, like these very, very just kind of obvious things. But, and, people will fight us on it. And then, we go to the, okay, well, IRS publication 4557 states here that you need to have a minimum password of 8 characters, uppercase, lowercase, number, symbol, things that we see a lot. But, people will fight us on why it doesn't apply to them. And okay, make your point for it. And, we can only do what we can do. But the trusted advisor role that so many accountants play. And I mean, I see this, with my own accountant, where I will go to him. I literally asked him about offering more benefits to my employees. And he said, well, obligatory statement, because we have a mutual friend who's a financial planner. He's like, you should have asked her first. So I'm just going to start with that. Here is who I use. However, they do great. But I went to my accountant for that piece because he is my trusted advisor. And he's actually not even a client of ours. The person that does work for him does a really good job. And we've audited the system on his behalf and gave it the thumbs up. But, it's very interesting to me that people they have so much personal, important information. I mean, if you get a 1040 in your hands, you have everything that's needed to do identity theft, everything off of a 1040. And, I only have, 10 clients. And it's like, well, do those 10 identities not matter? And I get it on the not wanting to spend money to fix a problem that hasn't happened to you yet. But it's also, I put a seatbelt on when I drive a car, not because I'm a person who's prone to getting into car accidents, but, how many car accidents would be enough for me to get into before I start wearing it? That's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of great information to pull from that. But the truth is that some basics go a long way, right? I when I think about cybersecurity, and I know that this might be the wrong belief or a misconception, and this is what I'm going to ask both of you next, is common misconceptions about the spaces that you find yourselves in, things that are routinely believed that may need a little bit of a course correction as it relates to your tools or what it is that you're doing. Oftentimes, people come to me and think Facebook ads is a silver bullet, or they think that if they just start blogging, clients are going to, come knocking down their doors. And there's it doesn't quite work like that. Of course, I can elaborate on that at a later time, but Andrew, let's start with you, because I find that sort of my personal belief about cybersecurity is I think, well, it's similar to why I lock my door at night. If somebody really wants to get in, they're probably going to figure out a way. There's gifted locks picks. There's people who can just break down the darn thing, but I still do it. And probably solves 90 plus 95, 99% of the cases that would realistically apply to it. But is that an appropriate analogy for cybersecurity? Do you find that just having the encrypted passwords enough? Is there other misconceptions that might be prevalent in cybersecurity that you'd like to quickly address here?
Yeah. So one of the things that I kind of touched on earlier, a lot of people will have that belief. It's never happened to me before. Therefore, it never could happen. And because I bought Norton, that's why I haven't been hacked yet. So the locking the doors analogy and your description on it is very, very accurate. If somebody is extremely gung-ho about getting your data in particular, you, Tyler S. Clark, not just I want to get a big list for whatever, but specifically Tyler S. Clark, nobody else. They will, in that analogy, right? The doors are locked. That's great, but they can break a window. They can see what kind of alarm system is there, what isn't there. They could pay attention to when you are home, when you aren't home. So in that analogy, there are a million other ways that they can break in versus using the front door. However, having that lock on the door, that's going to stop the person that's just like, okay, now let's try this house. It's locked. All right, go to the next one. Go to this house. It's locked. Go to the next one. Okay, it's unlocked. Let's see what's in there. So it's making yourself less, to stop at 100%. And that's literally, everything that we try to do. But there's back to this analogy. You have your doors always locked, the windows locked, everything, but you open the door and let the person inside of your house. It doesn't matter what kind of security you have because you've let them in. And we see that a lot in the IT world. Someone calls, they say, I'm with Microsoft, let me on your computer. They use the fake, the fake trust to get in. And once they're in, then you look at my example on Chase, which I've seen exactly happen, where they had the password saved on the computer. The fake person was on the computer, went to Chase. The username password was already saved on the computer. They locked the keyboard and mouse and wired this person's life savings out of their account in front of their eyes. But it looked like normal behavior. So, I have literally endless sad stories of what we do see. But the big picture, if you are putting secure passwords, if you're not reusing simple passwords, so, if your password is not Tyler 123 exclamation mark.
Why'd you just give away my password, man? What are you doing?
Yeah, this is me just throwing you under the bus, man. I got to change it. But having simple things in place will at least stop you from being that low hanging fruit. So yes. It's not a matter of how large your database is, but you are an accountant. Therefore, you probably have very, very sensitive information. And if I send a fake email to 100,000 accountants and, rule of averages, 0.01 click on it, you've made $1 million. So it's very, very important to not be, that small percentage that clicks on the fake, your Norton's going to renew for $400. Click here and download this app if that's wrong, like having the awareness, because that's where the stuff starts and ends, is with the user, and I see it all the time every day. So I'm very, very alert and aware of these things. But people that aren't in my space and aren't watching this every single day, they get an email and it seems like it's legitimate. Click on it. It's not because they're dumb people or anything like that. It's just, okay, this this seems legitimate. Like I had a friend message me. I hadn't talked to the guy in 10 years. And he sent me a Facebook message and he was like, that's crazy. You're a dad. LOL. Click this link. And I was like, there's no way that this is real. And I texted him. He's like, yeah, it's real. And I was like, really? But I have my guard up on everything, you know? So having the awareness that these things can happen, that's going to be so much bigger than any piece of software and policy you can put on the computer. But at the same time, having those is not a bad thing. You know, it's kind of like saying you should learn how to swim to like an infant, and we're not going to use floaties because you really got to get good at just swimming without them. And, you know, maybe just have your backup plan just in case is really the best way to go about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great points there, and I want to be cognizant of time here because we're gonna have to run at the top of the hour. I have a call I have to run to, but David, let's swing it over to you. Same question, common misconceptions that people have when they start to explore the tool or explore the fulfillment CRM sort of space here. What would you say those are?
Yeah. And Andrew, great point, by the way. I mean, I think, a healthy level of paranoia is very useful here. And so nothing stop you if somebody calls you to look up the phone number, look up their name, look up their LinkedIn, do really quick things. If somebody sends you a weird message like that Facebook one, I'm sure we've all gotten it, just reply back and say, is this real? Even that alone, people won't respond to, right? And so when it comes to the world of workflow, I think there's two that immediately come to mind. The first one is that the tool itself builds the discipline, which is just not the case. This is not a plug and play, and no single task or project or workflow tool will do that, even if you set up kind of dependencies or triggers or automations. And so what I mean by that is, just because you've set it up, just because you've rolled out, like in our tool, you can set up the standardized list, quickly roll it out to clients, have the recurrences set up. The next big barrier is like, do you use it and does your team use it? And so I think we've seen a lot of really just lightweight touch points, and you can have fun with these to really help drive adoption. And so Monday morning check-in, 30 minutes, you open up your Jetpack account. What's due this week? What's overdue? Let's all clean it up together. Where are you stuck? How can I help? By having a conversation with the tool open, it reinforces the behavior to use the tool. Could be Jetpack, could be something else, but it's really, really important to have at least that kind of cadence. You could take it a step further, and if you have kind of productivity one-on-ones, open up your Jetpack. What you get done this week? Where are you stuck? What do you have left in terms of booked hours or budgeted hours for your week? What needs to be deferred? What needs to move? As you're doing this, always have the application open and point back to it. Another example of this I'll just include in is that, as firm owners, as business owners, you're kind of naturally, certainly early on, certainly when you're growing quickly, you're in firefighter mode, and there's some really probably hairy problems you're trying to figure out. And when a team member comes to you and they say something simple like, hey, what was the second business location that client opened last year? You're like, oh, I just talked with Fred. It's in this county. It's in this state, whatever. But what that is reinforced is they're always coming to you instead of going to those source of record for that solution. So again, open up the tool and say, have you checked out Jetpack? Let's open up the client file. Maybe they haven't, it's not there. Great, update the system. Maybe they haven't, and then you both could do it together, or you could ask them just to review it first, whatever your preferred cadence is. Last but not least, building a process around a person, not as what is best for the client or the organization. Like, we have to do it this way because person X does it this way. Feels really good at the time. I remember even for us that we had a sales meeting 2 or 3 years ago. We're writing this big, laborious guide and all these rules, and we're like, man, if we got to make it this complicated, we have the wrong person. Like, if we really feel like we need to outline so much, right? And so, and how this again relates to workflow is if you feel like, well, you can't standardize all of your clients the same way because this one person has to do it this one way. You're either going to set it up to cater to that person, which is your new debt that you get to take on because that person will leave, something will change, they will hit capacity, and you're going to have to rearrange it in the future, or you're going to have to do it now. But those are the kind of quick ones that come to mind.
Yeah, those are great points as well. And look, I'm a big fan of, if you want a complete system, a tool is one of the 3 legs of the tripod there. And the tool can do a lot, right? The difference between a power drill and trying to build a house today versus trying to use not a power drill, like just do it without power, see how far you get, how long it takes. But that doesn't mean you still don't need the person to actually use the drill and know where to place the drill, right? You need the person, you need the process, you need the tools. You have all three of those things working together, you're going to do fantastic. And the same thing on Andrew's side over here is, I can't believe I had to explain to someone an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I thought that everybody understood that expression, but apparently I feel like David's like, what's an ounce of prevention means a pound. You know that expression, right?
I've never heard that expression.
Oh my Lord, it's true. People don't know that expression. It's happened twice in a week now. Okay. So an ounce. Yeah, it's pretty. You get it, right?
Jersey thing? You're from Jersey, right? Is it a Jersey thing?
Oh man, now you're calling out my Jersey background.
Look, so Tyler is, you know, he obviously does a lot, but I mean, this is a great phrase we all get to use. You know, you get to use with your clients because it is not glamorous to clean up books. It's not glamorous to kind of have things categorized appropriately, but like I would write down that phrase, and I guess it's more common. Maybe we're weird in Pittsburgh. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly been the case before. But these phrases are really important to also relay to your clients to talk about the importance of, you know, getting their back office together.
Yep, absolutely. And again, ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. But on the cybersecurity side, just a little bit goes a long way to making sure you're not one of those people that that it's getting written about in their local newspaper and tanking your reputation because you had a cybersecurity breach. I mean, you only get one reputation in this life. And you need to do everything necessary to just prevent that from having an episode that could be not what ultimately you're looking for. So very quickly, in less than 30 seconds, David, if they want to find out more information about you, what's the best place to find it?
Yeah, jetpackworkflow.com. That's where you could see if you want to start a free trial, if you want to get a demo, we could either or 14 days or a 30-minute call. We could still get you set up before tax season if you want to get things automated and standardized. You could get the podcast. You could get a digital copy of the blog, jetpackworkflow.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Andrew, where's the best place to be able for individuals to contact you?
They could schedule an audit to see actually, you know, how good their security is compared to the IRS publications. I put a link in the chat, but bit.ly/T4A-audit. And you'll actually talk with a technician certified from the AI CPA in cybersecurity. I mean, everything we do is accountants. Like, can we do lawyers? And yeah, I mean, we have lawyer clients, but the whole accountant thing is very, very specific. And there are a lot of things that most people aren't aware of. So you can, you know, head over to that book. You'll see the productivity tool Calendly, and get into get an appointment, and we'll go through and see where you know, where we can help, or if, you know, you've got everything perfect and one of those good people.
Fantastic. And let me just summarize it by saying, listen, if you're worried about being overwhelmed this tax season, book a call at Jetpack Workflow. If you know that your cybersecurity has been on the back burner for way too long, book a call with Andrew and Tech4 Accountants. And hey, if creating your dream firm is a priority, dreamfirms.com, Proactive Accountants Facebook group, you know how to find us. And remember that only you can create your dream firm, but we, including David and Andrew, are here to help you every single step of the way. Have a wonderful rest of your workday and have a wonderful tax season, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.